Before the video starts, I want to break in and apologize for the quality of the video. I don't know what was going on with my camera settings, but as you can see, I have it fixed. I don't know what that was, but I spent an hour filming and I didn't want to refilm, so I tried my hardest to clean it up, make it look good. I don't know why it looked like it was filmed with a Nokia, but if this is your first impression of me, this is not what my videos look like. So once again, I apologize. Let's get to the video.
Welcome back to my channel. My name is Alexis Hope. If you're new, if you're true, what's good? Don't forget to click on that subscribe button. If you've seen from my last video, we don't want to disappoint T'Challa. So in today's video, I actually want to talk about something that doesn't get talked about too much in the GLP-1 community. The outside world discusses this, but in our own community, I haven't really seen anybody discuss or just even mention these things. In my previous video, I talked about whether or not GLP-1s are considered cheating. Majority of us agree that it's just a tool. Honestly, it's a tool to help promote a healthier lifestyle and a healthier weight, just a healthier body all around. And that's, the goal of it. But there are some things that we have not discussed that we need to put it out there on the table. Since GLP-1s are pretty new, there's just, it's like a free-for-all out there. I have always been someone who overate, which is why I was overweight. Therefore, I've never been on the flip side of this, which is being underweight. But there is a concern out there that people who don't need these medications are actually using them to continue to lose weight or to stay at a certain weight. This is basically GLP-1s replacing anorexia. And there's a fear out there for this. And of course, you have, Hollywood models, influencers who are spearheading a certain type of look. And don't worry, I'll get into that as well. But this is, it's easier for people to get their hands on GLP-1s now. Since last year, I think it was around October or so, when there was a document signed, hopefully lowering the prices of GLP-1s. I know that the makers of Ozempic and Wegovy are saying by January of 2027, they hopefully will be lowering the cost and would have all that, down to where it's affordable for those of us who don't have insurance or who insurance won't cover it. But this is a issue for people who, don't need it. They have easier access. And let's also talk about the fact that there are a lot of these compound pharmacies popping up everywhere. These are the pharmacies where you make your monthly subscription, and actually they're not really the pharmacy. They're just pretty much the middleman. Now, there are some where you do not have to speak to a physician at all. You answer a questionnaire. From the questionnaire, they know where to go. But I'm pretty sure at the end of the day, they're going to give you the medication because they want your money. But this brings up the whole idea that people who don't need it, all they have to do is pay the subscription. There's currently no regulation as far as this. And there are manufacturers like Lilly Direct who are, just making sure that these compounded pharmacies aren't using Zepbound or Mounjaro, things like that. So they're trying to eliminate them. But it's kind of hard when these pharmacies are out here and they're making the compounded medication. And all they have to do is change just one or two things in the ingredient to make it compound. So there's actually no law per se against any of this. Therefore, anybody can get their hands on this medication. Now, from my research, the only country that I have seen that kind of has something around a law about, who can get their hands on these is the United Kingdom. In 2025, I believe it was, they actually spearheaded a law where if you do not need this medication, you cannot get your hands on it. You have to go through a pharmacy. They're just not letting, you go online to an online pharmacy and say, hey, I want, Mounjaro, and you get it. On the flip side, this is really good. But this also opens the door to, side effects and what happens when you stop the medication. What happens when you didn't need the medication to begin with and you stopped. So that's just something that is hopefully going to be put on the table as far as laws, as far as, regulation. And I know the FDA recently reached out to the makers of Ozempic and Wegovy to say, hey, you guys have side effects that you never reported to us. So it's like they are on the radar of lawmakers and of regulators, but it's just a matter of time before they say, hey, we actually need to have a system in place, because there's so many of these pharmacies, and there's just straight up websites that sell these things, and there's really no regulation behind it. Unlike, if you were to go and get insulin, or if you were to go and get just something that you actually really needed to regulate your body, something important, cancer medicine, something like that, there is nothing that regulates GLP-1 medication. With that being said, do you guys think that a lot of people are using it when they don't need to use it? And are they using it as a substitute for certain eating disorders or for other issues? Now, a couple of years ago, when I was searching for my first IT job, I was on Reddit and I was looking through a few subreddits, and somehow I went down a rabbit hole and landed in an HR subreddit. This subreddit was helpful, but there was a thread that mentioned appearances when somebody would come to interview. So they mentioned that when somebody was overweight and they would come for an interview, it would pretty much be an automatic no. They felt that if you couldn't control what you put in your body and your weight, you were fat and lazy, and you probably wouldn't be an asset to the company. That kind of rolled off my shoulder a little bit, because I have always been big and I have never had an issue getting a job before. But looking back, that makes me wonder about beauty standards. Now, of course, this beauty standard is absolutely not new. But with GLP-1 medications, it makes it a lot easier to obtain for those of us who are not in Hollywood. Now, we have to be real. Influencers, models, celebrities, they really do shape a culture, the way people see themselves, and the beauty standard. Now, when people are using GLP-1s to kind of stay thin or be thin and stay thin, then that makes people who are impressionable say, hey, if Khloe Kardashian is doing this and she looks really good, then I can do this and I should do this because I want to look like Khloe Kardashian. So these industries that are striving for perfection are using Ozempic and other GLP-1s, and it's trickling down to the rest of us, and it's making a lot of people who don't need the medication say, hey, I want to look like this, therefore I'm going to go take it. Now, I understand that there are celebrities who do use it, and it makes sense. Like, that makes sense that Oprah is using a GLP-1 medication. Oprah has notoriously been very, very open about her weight loss, her struggles, things like this. So this makes sense. But you have somebody like the Kardashians, and it's like the math isn't mathing. You all were not overweight to begin with. So taking it, is kind of worrying. But of course, companies are sniffing this out. So you have the compounded pharmacies just coming up out of nowhere to meet the demands of society now wanting to look really, really skinny, look really, really thin. Now, I had made a TikTok, I think I posted it here, about my Ozempic face. And yes, your face is slimmer. And I'm just now researching for this video, I'm finding out about Ozempic hands. It's when your hands are skinny and, you can see the veins and stuff, but that actually happens with any weight loss. Of course, somebody's hands are going to look different when they lost weight, because you also lose weight in your hands. So I find it interesting that these things now have names, but for those of us who need the medication, it's kind of like, we're catching strays. And I also want to point out, for somebody who has never been under 150 pounds, it might be really enticing to look like they're 120 pounds. I actually follow a influencer who, we are the same height. We are the same shoe size, and I believe we have the same breast size as well, because she kind of mentioned it years ago in a swimsuit try-on haul. But we are vastly different in our shape and our weight. She could run a marathon. I'm just starting to enjoy the fact that I can go up a flight of stairs without being out of breath. Now, is this creating impossible beauty standards? I think so, in a certain population or a certain percentage of the population. The percentage who may be influenced easily by their favorite celebrities, or, people who they call idols, depending on K-pop, J-pop, things like that. I think that they are easily influenced. But at the same time, for those of us who are taking it because we really needed it, it's kind of like, and it makes you sit back and think, is this going to be the new beauty standard? Think 10, 15 years from now, is everybody going to be walking around with Ozempic hands? Another thing I don't think we address enough is, out of nowhere, all of a sudden, all of the GLP-1 / weight loss influencers or creators, I'm going to sit back and, tell on myself a little bit, because I have been making videos for the past year about my journey, but understand that it is my journey. There are people who, actually give real deal health information. Where they get these things, I do not know. But I just want to say that just because your favorite influencer is saying, hey, do such and such, be mindful and also understand your body at the end of the day. Nobody knows your body like you do. You can go to a doctor right now and say, hey, this right here is wrong. And they'll be like, well, the scans come back and there's no problem. You know your body. Now, since the internet is full, and I mean full, of misinformation and just really sideways opinions, you have countries like China that in 2025, they actually made it so their creators or influencers have to have credentials if they want to tell and give out medical information, which I think is amazing. Now, they don't use social media like we do. They have their own social media, so they don't have really access to TikTok and Facebook and things like that. They have their own. So their creators that are on those websites, they actually have to know what they're talking about. And I mean, China wants them to back it up with credentials. You have to actually show that you have a degree in medicine before you tell somebody, hey, you can fast for 14 days at a time and not die. Things like this, which is amazing. And I think that we probably should be limiting some of the information that just random, regular creators give. But I also want to point out that just because somebody has MD or PhD behind their name doesn't mean they don't have nefarious intentions. So I want to give you guys an example of that. This book right here is by Casey Means. You may have seen me in one of my vlogs sitting and reading this book. It's a really good book. I always thought it was a really good book. It was actually recommended to me by one of my doctors. He was my kidney doctor. We were trying to get my blood pressure in check, and he was like, Alexis, your cells are the reason why everything is happening. So this is a really good book. He recommended it. I went and I bought it. Now, in doing my research for this video, it turns out Casey Means is not only, she was appointed something by Trump. I can't remember what it was, but she's like the head of something for this administration. But she was also putting out a lot of content, but it was sponsored content and she wasn't telling people. And a lot of the stuff that she was putting out was basically pseudoscience, and it was, just for her to make money. That is why I think it's so important for everyone to do their research before they do anything, before they take anything, regardless of what they're telling you. Now, I have seen and heard doctors who, are right there in front of their patients and they're Googling stuff. They don't know everything either. And it's interesting that they can just use like buzzwords like protein, nutritionist, things like that, and people will fall for it. And the fact that everything all of a sudden now is protein this, protein that is a whole different story. I knew the world was ending when Dunkin' Donuts came out with their protein. I just knew the world was ending. But sadly, in a world of AI, which people can easily spot, they cannot spot when the information that they are being given is deadly and untrue. There is just a whole subculture out there that is holistic, and holistic medication or holistic ways, is great. I'm here for some ayahuasca, but love and light did not heal your kidneys. So people need to, use discernment when they're on the internet and they're following somebody. And back when I was keto, which was, I tried keto maybe 3 or 4 times. To me, it wasn't, just sustainable. It just wasn't. It wasn't sustainable because I got food noise. I want to eat. It worked for maybe about a week or so. And did I lose weight? Yes. But you just have so much misinformation. Now, I did find a couple of sources that were probably decent. Like, I think Dr. Jason Fung. I had watched some of his videos, that they made sense, things like that. But at the end of the day, you have to remember, you got to know your body. Nobody knows your body but you. So there's no doubt about it. GLP-1 medications have changed the game. But because there's little medical oversight, easier access, and of course you have creators, influencers, celebrities, just with a certain look about them, and they're using GLP-1. I mean, this is, to me, is a recipe for disaster, 100%. But I just wanted to bring the conversation back to the GLP-1 community, because it seems like everybody on the outside is talking about this, but not really us as much, or at least I haven't seen anything here on YouTube, like as far as the actual discussion. Maybe TikTok, 30 seconds here and there. But I just wanted to bring that back to us, have a discussion, and say, what are your thoughts on this? We are taking the medication because we actually need it. With that being said, you guys, I will see you in my next video.